I used to do this during my festival, during pandemic. I used to have a show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the final breakfast show of Labone Dialogues at NYU Accra. I'm your host, James Murwa.
And I am Socrates Mbamalu.
So we are here to tell you goodbye. We're trying to here to tell you what you've missed over the last 3 days. And we're here to tell you we'll see you next time. Those 4 of you or 2 of you who are currently logged on, our hashtag is NYU Accra LitSimp, LITSYMP, NYU Accra LitSimp. And let's start our conversation. Socrates, this is the last day. We are saying goodbye to very many people leaving the festival today. How was your day generally yesterday?
Yesterday was good. It was different. It was also a little bit sad because the conversations were coming to an end. So, it was great conversations, great meeting of people, and very exhaustive in terms of topics discussed, and even the side shows that we had, side conversations that we had were really insightful in their own ways. So, yesterday was really interesting. We had various panel sessions, from Chike's session on memory, to Aminata Fauna and Susan's session. So these were really good sessions that we were able to explore.
So I'm going to chat about Chike Frankie Edozian and Kina Likimani's. Maybe you'll chat about the Aminata Fauna session?
Yeah.
Good. So whose memory is it? It was supposed to be a session with Sisonke Msimang and Chike Frankie Edozian. And the 2 of them have written memoirs. So it was supposed to be a conversation between the 2 of them, moderated by our venerable Kina Likimani. Unfortunately, Sisonke wasn't able to make it, so it was a one-on-one between Kina Likimani and Chike, Frankie Chike. I don't know, it's like that name edition to come into my world. I need to call her. So it was between Chike and Kina. And I love it because Frankie has written a book called Lives of Great Men, which is it's the first memoir written by a gay man in Nigeria. And he talks about, the point of the book is telling you that there are queer men and women all over the African system. So this is not a thing that came from abroad, or it wasn't brought by the Europeans, it wasn't brought by the Arabs, it has always been with us. It was well received, the book was well received, it won the Lambda Literary Award for memoir, and it was wonderful watching the 2 of them, because, Kina put him on the spot and he spoke about, his process, how he came up with the book, whether he was comfortable having people who are, people may not have had consent, but he explained how he went around that. First it was supposed to be a documentary, then it became a memoir. So it actually was one of the personal highlights for me because as a journalist, he's also a journalist. So maybe this is the route I need to be taking. Personal memoir. Although I don't know whether I'm not in the in the queer community, so I don't know what I'll write about. Yes. So that was a big deal for me. What about the agent panel?
Well, to be honest, I think that panel was really important because one of the most challenging things, even as young writers, is getting an agent, especially when you live on the continent. And I think it's a process that is made to look very cumbersome and is made to look very, very huge and challenging, which it is in its own way.
Actually, one sec. Listen, if you missed any of these panels, they're on the YouTube channel of the NYU Accra. So don't panic. We're chatting about panels, and did you see it? If you missed anything, they're on the NYU page. I really want to talk about the pasties now. So this panel was between Aisha Haruna Atta, Jennifer Makumbi, and they were chatting with Abubakar Adam Ibrahim. So the two women, Aisha, who's a Ghanaian living in Senegal, and Jennifer, who's a Ugandan currently living in Manchester, they have written, historical fiction, and they went through the intrigues, of, making sure that the books are coming out, whether you censor yourself when you're writing the book, the kind of responses that people have given them, their challenges, the opportunities. And basically, if you're somebody who's interested in writing historical fiction, you want to either pick up Chintu, which is Jennifer's first historical novel, and The Hundred Wells of Salaga, which is Aisha Haruna Atta's first novel. So, as you can see, this festival covered a lot. Like that historical fiction, that's agenting. There is whose memory is it? Is there a panel you want to talk about?
I think for me, the panel that really probably stood out in all of this, because there were so many of them, and I'm trying to even wrap my head around the one that stood out for me. Let me see. I think it was the Aminata Fornas panel. I don't know why, but I keep going back to that particular panel. The keynote she gave was excellent. I have that speech with me for keepsake, apart from journalistic purposes, but I have it for keepsake. But I mean, very, 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 very brilliant storytelling in that keynote. But it's also the issue of where do you stand, in telling stories, which is something that also, Frankie Chikedozen also mentioned when in his panel yesterday. When he talked about finding his own community in Paris, and even in finding that community, how he was able to navigate and even navigate loneliness in this European city, and down to also, after finding his community, down to writing stories about his community. So you take the story of Amadou Diallo, the Guinean young man who was shot back in the Bronx in New York, and Frankie Dozen being central to telling the story properly, as an African immigrant, and as someone who also has come from, someone who has experienced Africa, as from a certain class and going to the West and, having to be forced, into another certain class position. So, in finding ourselves in those spaces, we can navigate them especially for good, tell the stories out there, and support our own. So I think those panels really were really pregnant, and they're quite tied to the narrative, to the theme of this particular symposium, which is, reclaiming the narrative. So you're in an European city, you're in an American city, as many of us are emigrating, either as expatriates or whatever it might be. But, we're emigrating to these cities, and there is, always that lack of community. But once we're able to establish that community, we have to tell the stories, and not let it be cast to the shadows.
We also had a keynote yesterday by Chris Abani. And I have to tell you, man, I need to actually go and read the keynotes. Yeah, I really didn't understand a lot. Do you want to chat a bit about it? Because I listened to it, but it looks like one of those you need to go and absorb and understand.
Yeah, I too need to also go and absorb and understand. Maybe partly why I also took the keynote speech from him. But prior to that, Chris Abani and some of us were having this conversation around identity and around language, and about, I think one key issue in reclaiming the narrative was, no African language was spoken here, and how language is a huge vehicle for culture, for even knowing yourself, and things like that. So yeah, you could be speaking the English language, but there's some things in your own language in which you think, in which you express yourself that cannot be expressed in any other way. So I think that was part of what he was trying to to push out, because the conversations we had, again, as I said, were really, really deep conversations where we were like, oh, and having these conversations around you have children who are not speaking your language. How do you go about that? And I remember one of the people we were having this conversation with was like, oh, I'm from this part, of this country. I'm from this other part. My husband is from this other part, and we speak English to each other. But I mean, I studied linguistics, and I very well know that. Say you can speak 5 languages to your kids, 5 different languages, and your kids will grow up speaking those 5 languages perfectly, because at that point in time, the argument really is whether the mind of a child is a blank slate, what they call a tabula rasa, whether, they just absorb, so there is definitely that sense in which, a child can easily absorb languages. So yeah, there is that push, for us to claim each part of our own world through these languages. It is not an either or. You have to, you put your 2 feet. And it's a conversation that I think we should keep having. So for me particularly, I speak Kiswahili. I grew up in Kenya. It is yes, I feel Kenyan. If I'm talking to myself sometimes or whatever, it could be in Kiswahili a little bit, and it helps me, channel my own thoughts and how to approach certain situations. Yeah.
There was some local language. So there was some language spoken at the festival here. In his keynote, he did speak. I think he spoke a bit of Igbo. Yoruba. And then, of course, there was the Ghanaian poets who are part of the African Poetry Book Fund. And some of them sprinkled in some of the languages that they speak. And I enjoyed that. They're young poets. It was run by Sapong. Yeah, it was run by Sapong Osei Asamoah. And we had these 3 poets, Jacob Kopi, Nikita Ajirakor, and Tawia Mensah. So these poets also presented their work. They have their little poetry chapbooks with the African Poetry Book Fund. And I have to say, dude, I'm really excited to see that. We don't have enough of... We have a lot of prose coming out, but we don't have a lot of poetry like we see that's seeping into the system. And I really appreciate what the African Poetry Book Fund is doing. I mean, I don't know how they were involved in this festival, but I know that just the actual presence at the festival with the chapbooks was really exciting. I wanted to go a little bit on the side shows away from because this was a really, really intense program. Congratulations, team NYU Accra. It was a really intense program, but it wasn't just like a really intense program. We had also a very, very, very enjoyable experience. You're doing conversations on identity. We are doing conversations on prizes. We are doing conversation. Then there was a video bookshop which was here, which they made a killing. I chatted with the bookstore afterwards, and they asked, how are you doing? I'm like, no, we really sold a lot. So that's a good sign, because we've been saying buy a book, read a book at this festival. Yes. And you can imagine if the official bookstore was video books, and they sold a lot of books. And we had other merchants as well who were here. But for me, apart from the fact that I was enjoying the panels, it was the actual guests at the festival. From the legend, Professor Wole Soyinka. Then we had the keynotes from, Aminata Fona, from Chris Abani. Those 2 gave a keynote. And then the other keynote, she didn't give a keynote, but she was one of the what did you call them? The keynote speakers. Jennifer Nansobuga Makumbi, she's from East Africa like us. So of course I'm going to feel I'm going to feel a bit of they call it closeness to her, because she's one of us. Then of course, apart from now the big headliners, we have if you look at this program over here, so the top people are the big names, our big names that we use. We use them to sell products, posters and all that. But then we have the other people. We have Leah Denle, Aisha Haruna Hatta, Chike Frankie Adosian, Tendai Huchu, Zimbabwean now living in Edinburgh. We had Remy Ngamije, who's coming from Namibia. We have Gregory Padlow, Pulitzer Prize winning poet. We had Zugiswa Vanar, We had Femi Kayode, Nigerian. We had Nana Dakwa Sekiama, as I mentioned earlier, Sisonke and Semam couldn't be able to make it, but we had Wana Udobang, Wana, who blew us away with her poetry. Yes. Yeah. Then, of course, there was you. There was Abubakar Adam Ibrahim, the award winner and the coolest man in African letters. We had Swedi. We had Swedi. We had who's this? Next to One Love after Swedi. This guy. It's man with glasses. Yeah. Oh, Fui Khan, one of the poets who did a wonderful performance here. Okay, there's One Love who. Tell us about the final. Can we talk about the cocktail we had yesterday? Yeah, please. Did you enjoy the cocktail yesterday?
I enjoyed the ice cream. I enjoyed the suya.
Oh, yeah.
And definitely enjoyed the cocktail. Really, really relaxed, chilled, lovely space. It was a very good ending to the big events that had taken place. I think from yesterday, it was like, we're going to start unwinding into today. So I really liked it. Also great conversations had on the side. Good music, repetitive from the DJ though. But good musical performance from that Ghanaian musician. I forget his name. One Love, yeah. Very good musical performance. So yeah, it was really good. It was really good. Team Chike, Team NYU did great work, and I think it was just a good way to to bring the week to an end.
Please, NYU, please do it again. Let's have NYU Labone dialogues again. It's been amazing. So we are still going through some of the people who we saw today in the last 3 days. We had Michael Kelleher, who is an administrator for the Wyndham Campbell Prize. If you've never heard of the Wyndham Campbell Prize, it's a prize where they call you up and tell you they've given $175,000. Yes, I can see the audience. Somebody's like, "Wow, sir, we have money to give you."
Yeah, there is money in literature, not only tech.
Yes, yeah. So he's the administrator for this prize. He came in from Yale University. There was, of course, Kinali Kimani, I mentioned. Dilman Dila, Ugandan filmmaker and writer. And he actually was speaking about film yesterday. He was chatting about From the Page to the Film with Nozizwe, Cynthia Njele, and the name Nicole Amatio. Nicole is easy. The other one is on which I have to wrap my head around. Nicole Amatio. Amatefio. Please don't hurt me, Nicole. Yeah, so I really enjoyed their conversation on how they are translating the from the page to the screen. Dillman actually started as a writer, and I think he said he came into the business as a writer. Then he realized there's no money. He'll not be able to pay his bills, so he had to get into film. So he didn't tell us. Okay, he told us he's making enough money to be in film. Oh, nice. Cynthia Jelle knows she wrote a book called Happiness is a Four-Letter Word, which won everything. Wow. Commonwealth First Book Prize Africa, the last Mnet Award, and then it was made into a film called Happiness is a Four-Letter Word, very imaginative, and it's actually the biggest selling box office succession in South African history. Wow. Yeah, so she was talking about that experience, and of course, Nicole, again, please Nicole, don't hurt me. She also has her own project, An African City. So there was a lot of discussion here around that. Let me just go to the last of the people. Ni Aikwe Parks, Ayesha Harunata, we mentioned it just now. Onjaki. Onjaki is from Angola, and he's the coolest man, one of the coolest men we had here. Suleiman Adonia. I think that's the second lady. I think that's the second lady of show. It had better be the second lady. Nicole is. I'm really on you today. Yeah? That was that. Nicole is the pretty lady next to me. Yeah. So like Suleiman Adonia has beautiful writing. His most famous one is "Silence is a Mother Tongue," where the protagonist, the setting for the camp for the story is in a refugee camp in Kenya. I don't know. That actually works very well for what's happening in the world today. And then there's Damia Jai. Oh, he also set up the Addis Asmara Literary Festival in Belgium, in Brussels. It's the first one that's ever happened in Europe. Oh, it's the first one that's ever happened outside of Ethiopia and Eritrea. So that's a unique festival project he's done. Then Damia Jai, he's a poet of note. 3 poetry collections. Then Kalafe Palanga, who lost his passport, if you remember, he's got. Yes, he lost it in Europe, and he pivoted to a literary career of losing your passport. So, guys, anything that happens to you can become a trigger for you for being a literary star. We mentioned Nozizwe Jele and Martin of the Writers Project of Ghana. Do you want to try and say his name? Martin. This one.
If I've not pronounced it wrong, it should be Eblebobe. Yeah.
Did you get it right?
Really? It sounds like a Benin name. It sounds like a name from Edo State. Yeah. Eblebobe. Yeah, it sounds like a name from Edo State.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the people who have been entertaining us with their panels, with their wisdom, and for the last 3 days. So if you see any of those names, person on the internet scrolling and wondering what is going on, Google their names and find them and buy their book. Yeah. So apart from what are some of the other side shows? Did you see anything that you want to comment?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, there are just some certain conversations going on, basically, like I had said earlier, but nothing. I don't think there was anything so much aside, just being happy to have to be in this space, to have met each other, and promising to keep in touch if we can, and also just thinking of the next steps of how one would survive, as a writer. These kind of spaces have a way to also be very therapeutic because you come and you realize what you're doing, you're not alone, and everyone is striving in their own way, to just keep up with with this love for literature, to write and all that. So this was great. This was a great symposium, that took place, and a very important one. I don't know if Frankie Edozian will be convening another one anytime soon, because it's like we have stressed him too much. The wahala is not easy of organizing, but it's really important we also have people who do these organizations, because as writers we can get very much carried away with only wanting to put something on page, which is important, but the African literary landscape has to expand to also organizers. It has to expand to people who are interested in the business side of literature. Not everybody is going to be a literary star, and these other things that we don't focus on are actually the pillars that end up supporting or building the literary space and creating the literary ecosystem. So I think this is really important. Writers finding different ways to survive. Writers talking about the markets and talking about how else how prices change their lives. And these are the only places you'll have those conversations. Sliding into DMs will not do this for you. Yeah, so you're not going to slide into a writer's DM and they'll give you all the details like this. So that's another good reason why you can always check the NYU Accra page and find the conversations that have been had here. Yeah. So pretty much for me, I'm looking forward more to today, to the cocktails at Frankie Dozian's place. uh,
Publicly.
oh really? I didn't know. I thought it was. I thought it was on the. I thought it was on the.
I want to.
Oh my God! I was so.
As you're still getting used to what happened there. Okay, so I have to mention something. Before we talk about the whatever, I have to say thank you to the NYU Accra staff and volunteers. They were amazing. They are some of the kindest guys in the background. Thank you. We can't say your names because some of the names are difficult for some of us. So it's easy to say Martin and Nicole, but everybody guys in the camera spaces, the photographers, the people who are making sure that the guests were shuttled from here to there, the people who made sure that, I've never eaten so much in the last, I don't eat that much in my own life, but breakfast, lunch, brunch, dinner, I may have to do a detox when I get home. So thank you so much to the team, the core team at NYU in Accra. Thank you to the volunteers and to the staff, and thank you generally to NYU. I also want to say that a lot of people don't know this, but you mentioned that writing is a very solitary profession. People sitting in their own rooms, but I know this is probably the first time that a festival that was formed during the pandemic called Afro-Lit Sans Frontières. So this is the first time a lot of the people who took part in that festival were in the same room at the same time. So it's historic. You can imagine that festival changed trajectories of very many lives. Because after that festival, many of them started being picked up by agents. Some of them started getting big deals, started moving. So you can imagine the pandemic, that was 3 years ago. And they've never met, but this is where they came to meet. So Accra, NYU Accra, thank you so much. This is the place where I believe the Kane Prize nominees, Troy Onyango and Remy Agamije, who are very close. They work together on their different magazines. They are each other's shoulder to lean on. And they met at NYU Accra. So you find that it's very, very unique way of meeting. And it's beautiful because in a previous lifetime, they'd have to meet in London, they'd have to meet in Frankfurt, they'd have to meet in Sharjah, they'd have to meet in Washington, and now they're meeting on their own soil, on their own terms. So I wanted to mention that. For me, it was exciting. You see these writers in their own natural environment. There's no way you're an African and you come to Accra and you don't feel like you're at home. Accra is home for every African or every black person. Yeah. So I know you have something, so I just had to interject.
No, that's brilliant. Because you're very right. I haven't seen Troy, I think, since 2018. Oh. Yeah. That was the last time we actually met in Accra. I haven't also been in Accra since 2018, and this is my first time also being in a literary space in Accra. And of course, it's also very good that Accra being the World Book capital, this is just a very, very opportune time to have this symposium, and talk about the literary space and so many other things. I wonder whether we should invite Frankie here to tell us how he curated this whole thing.
Actually, he's still thinking on whether he wants to be here or not.
Yeah.
I have to actually go back on that World Book Capital. So the World Book Capital, for those of you who are watching, maybe you've never heard of what that is. The World Book Capital is the UNESCO designates, every year they designate one city to the capital of the book. We've had a few African cities who have been designated as World Book Capital, and they include Alexandria, Durban, Port Harcourt, and Banjul. No, Guinea, Conakry. So this is the sixth African city to be designated World Book Capital. It's a big deal because for 1 year the whole world is looking at Accra or whichever is the World Book Capital, and it started in April. And this is the 6th month. So there have been events happening all over Accra. So if you're watching this from Accra, please just go to your Twitter. Is it X feed now? Right? X feed, or go to your Facebook or Oh, X. Oh, it's called officially X, formerly Twitter. It's like the artist formerly known. So please go to your social media feeds, whether it's TikTok, Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram. You should be able to look for World Book Capital, and you should be able to find something that's happening around the city of Accra. So this is a big deal, man. Like this is actually considered a World Book Capital event. So if you're actually watching us, dude, you are also part of the World Book Capital. So there's that. So congratulations, Accra. You've been doing an amazing job. I've been following the World Book Capital when you officially inaugurated in April, and you've been doing an amazing job of doing events. We are looking forward to the next 6 months, and then we hand it over to whoever it is next. It's not an African city, but we are readers, so we follow wherever it is next. Yeah. So that's my little addition to that World Book Capital discussion. Yeah.
So what else? What are we doing today, James? Apart from probably flying to our designated areas, and why are you flying to?
I'm going back to Nairobi, Kenya. So this is the last official event at the NYU Accra campus. There are other events that started earlier today. There was an Accra city tour. There was an artistic tour. You go to a photo gallery and a gallery to see the art, and then at lunchtime you get to go to a school and meet kids and inspire them. So today, of course, is really about we are now shutting off. We are saying goodbye to Accra. I'm going to be going to Nairobi. You're going to the you're going to the headquarters of the abroad. You're going to expatriate completely. Yeah. So if you're watching this live now and you're in Accra, this is an opportunity to join the team. You may not be able to follow the city tour, but they'll be going to a school to chat with kids and inspire them to be broker writers in future. Maybe Dangote, man. We can't be waiting for William Campbell.
Dangote can probably start. You'll be surprised. Dangote might start a literary prize tomorrow, and it could be the biggest literary prize on the continent. He could do that. Dangote, this is for you. Watch us do this.
Yeah, we challenge you, Dangote. We challenge you, Dangote. Give us money. Anyway. So this is what's been happening in the last 3 days. Panels, keynotes, performances, wonderful performances of poetry. We've had concerts, we've had live performances, we've had book selling, we've had apart from book selling, we've had interactions with writers from all over the continent, and not just black writers. We've had a whole look at other people, and not just writers. We had filmmakers, we've had poets, we've had thinkers generally, and yes, of course, yesterday we had the British High Commissioner here giving her speech. We had a whole bunch of people. So I'm assuming that this is not going to happen again in this way. We are assuming the Labone Dialogues will go back to its one-person event. That's what we're assuming. Make it big still. So what are you anticipating for the future?
In terms of Labone Dialogues, in terms of
Let's start with Labone.
I'm hoping this can be replicated over the years. Hopefully NY can generously keep on funding this, and even expand this to more conversations, either diaspora, home conversations, and how there can be more collaborations. I believe there's opportunity to expand on that. In terms of the future generally, I hope we can keep shaping the literary space, keep building our institutions, and find a way to, to bring a different, to inject more enthusiasm, into literature on the continent.
Are you seeing this as a good time to be in the writing space?
Yeah, I think it's always a good time to be in the writing space. It's always a good time to be in the writing space. Writing does so much. It makes you think clearer, makes you reflect on your thoughts, but also generally it just makes you I think maybe feel in tune, with the world and much of the madness that's going around. Sometimes the only way we can really explain, the thoughts and the emotions in our heads. So and for young Africans especially, this is a time when their voices really matter. They're the most highest population on the continent. They do a lot. So this is the time for them to get into that space and put it down there.
So we'll be wrapping up our live stream. Yeah. So ladies, gentlemen, and people of other genders, we would like to say thank you for joining us. I want to say that I really see this as a golden age of African literature. We are producing more than they were producing in the 70s and the 60s and the 80s. This is the golden age of African literature. We are producing work in different genres, from sci-fi to Nnedi Okorafor just won at the Hugo Awards in China, and Wole Talabi was actually up for award there. He didn't win. Anand Devi has just been announced the winner of the language, the Prix de Langue. It's actually a prize for French. She's a Mauritian writer. So we've been winning a lot. 2021 we won everything from the Nobel Prize to the Booker Prize to the Griffin Prize to the anything prize was won by an African person. So this is a golden age. So a lot of you may be writers and you're thinking, no, maybe we're not doing. No, we're working. So please jump in the battle either as a writer. If you can't write as well as you probably might want to write, jump in as a promoter, do events, jump in with your. I think that somebody said yesterday that the best type of writing is writing checks. Come with your money, come with your enthusiasm. And if you can't do any of those, come with yourself and your friends and buy books. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, goodbye from NYU Accra. If you missed anything, I've said it more than once. If you missed anything, the same YouTube channel you're watching my mug is the same place you'll find all the amazing writers from Shoyinka to Jennifer Makumbi to Aminata Fona to Chris Abani and the others. Goodbye, ladies and gentlemen.
Goodbye. My name still remains Socrates Mbamalu. And
do you have a book? Do you have something? Where can you find your work?
Where can you find my work? I have works in a couple of places. Other stories, I have a non-fiction piece there that I wrote on trailer drivers, actually very much inspired by Frank Edozian pushing me to give my all in that piece. So I did this piece when I was still in Nigeria, and that was, I think, 2016. And I followed trailer drivers from Lagos to the northern part of Nigeria, Kano State, for 3 days. And I came back and I wrote about my experience and there more about really, the trailer drivers and how they survive on the roads. I have also done more on politics and right now foreign policy, but I'm still having something to write. Frankie doesn't always keep texting me, "Where's your book? Where's your book?" So I have that in line. I hopefully once I've settled certain things, I'll pick that up and hopefully deliver.
On my part, the name is James Murua. You will find me under a brand Writing Africa. So it's writingafrica.com. It's Writing Africa on YouTube. It's Writing Africa on Spotify. Writing Africa on Facebook, Writing Africa, basically we're Writing Africa. So Writing Africa, finding me, you'll find me where I curate what's happening in African letters. So guys, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, guys.